There's not a lot of hits either.
Good evening and welcome to the School Building Committee. This is the Georgetown Middle School portion of the two meetings that we have. We'll start off by approving the minutes of August 6th, 2013. Has everyone had a chance to review them? Anyone care to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve as presented.
Any seconds?
No, it's one thing on the.
Wait a minute, let me take a second first and then we'll do comments.
Second.
Okay, comments?
Oh, yes. But just on the August 6th, I wasn't here. He has me as here.
Okay.
On the Pembroke.
Okay.
Any others? Any other comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We don't have any invoices this evening, no correspondence, no old business.
Moving along.
We're gonna move right
Wow, this is a
along.
record, huh?
We're breaking many
That's
records
good.
tonight. Pat, would you like to give us an update?
Yeah, the Pembroke we're right in the middle of a very exciting time. We're right in the middle of the.
The middle high school.
Oh, you're on the middle high school, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon, middle high school. We're getting ready to respond to the second portion of the request from MSBA. There were a few more things they wanted based on the submittal that was made on the 8th, and we'll be wrapping those up and getting them in before the week's over. And that is being done this week so that we're ready for the Facilities Committee meeting next week on Wednesday. Is a Facilities Committee meeting, and just to refresh everybody's recollection, that's where you go in and basically present the project, go through any questions they have, and just give them a quick overview and see if they have anything else they may require. It's in preparation for the board meeting that is the end of September. So that is all set, and certainly anybody that's interested in coming in, they usually want Carol, because she's the person that they have to make
Has she
contact
been
with.
contacted?
She's aware of it, yeah, and she's been involved in this discussion we've had based on the information that is required to go in.
I
So,
start work, I don't know, can you attend?
On the 28th, I don't know.
yeah.
We might
But
be
again,
away.
like I said, as long as Carol's there, obviously DRA and ourselves will be there, and we'll basically go through it. It's basically an architectural presentation supported by whatever we have to offer in the process, and any questions they may have. And it's really tantamount to getting all of the issues resolved before it gets to the board meeting, because at the board meeting, once they accept it in, as we all know, it's pretty much a rubber stamp if they accept it into the board meeting.
Well, we should probably invite Barbie as the chair of the school committee. Perhaps she might like to go in.
Yeah, well, again, like I said, normally what happens is that since we're
Right.
going together, I usually pick Carol up and we go in. Anybody else that can fit in the vehicle certainly is willing to, welcome to come in. I believe it's set up for 10:45, if my memory serves me correctly, which means we would leave here at, I don't know, 8:30, 8:45, just to be sure we get in.
Yeah.
And they're on time, get set up. And then from there, it's just a matter of getting to the board and continue the process.
Okay. Is everything going pretty smoothly?
Yeah, as far as we're concerned, it is, yeah. I think it's moving along pretty well. They've had questions, but again, like I said, from there, it'll go into the next phase. Next phase is bit where we get it all ready to get to the schematic design stage, which will be, again, like I said, just to, again, refresh recollection, it'll be next February, March board meeting, and that'll get the stage set for town meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. So, everything is moving according to plan.
It's good news.
Yeah.
We have a copy of that
Yeah.
submission here
Yeah.
for Carol. I don't know if she's coming tonight,
Yeah.
but it's her copy
Okay,
of that.
great.
We're still, one thing we're waiting for the final verdict on the FEMA
Right.
design. As you remember, I think there was $200,000 or $400,000 in there for FEMA. Right now, we're carrying, in the budget, we're carrying $1 million, because we know that original design that was based on a plan that was done for a perimeter drain was gonna be more than likely insufficient. So to be safe and protect the town's interest, there was a decision made to carry some additional dollars. We still don't know what's gonna happen. The earliest, I guess, we'll find out will be this fall. Mike says that we should get some information there. And then at that point, they may start to press us that if we're not gonna get that grant, start working out the design within the confines of this contract, because they're gonna want that work done.
Right.
And quite frankly, it would be not in the town's best interest to do a lot of work in the school without addressing the moisture problem, whether it's
Absolutely.
FEMA or whether it's part of this project, someplace along the line it should get addressed. So, once we move into the schematic design phase, there'll be a necessity to obviously find out who's then doing the design, so that obviously that can be folded into the process and be ready for the submission to MSBA in January.
So you have a backup plan for that, Carl, just in case that
Well,
comes to play?
we certainly have civil engineers who are capable of, designing it. Right now, as Pat says, it's not in our scope. But
So is there gonna be a cutoff point where we have to say we need to move forward with doing the drainage?
Well, we sort of need to work back from, I think the submission date, Pat, is January to make that board
That's right.
meeting.
That's right.
And, basically, the most important thing we need is a good cost estimate. And so we have to allow about a month for that, and we got Christmas in there. So, we need the design done by early December, late November. So, probably the end of September might be a drop dead date for making a decision to give our
Which coincidentally
consultants,
is right after schematic design phase is approved. So
Yeah.
once they approve it, I would say, to me, that would be the time that we'd have to say, what are we hearing from FEMA? And if they're dragging their feet to have enough time to get this in, January, I think you'd have to make a decision to move forward.
Mike, is there any way that
Right.
we can ask FEMA nicely? And just tell them a little bit about the situation that we're, or
That
would
we're in?
that not be?
I've been asking them nicely. It's like the time to ask them not nicely. I've been asking them nicely for a year and a half, so.
Yeah,
I mean, because we
They
don't want to
move at their
include it
own
and then get
speed.
money for it and not,
right.
I think we're gonna be in.
I mean, the end of
a spot.
September is literally weeks at
Yeah.
this point.
I didn't think we were gonna hear from them till December.
Right.
I thought that was when we were gonna hear.
Well, we don't, the fact of the matter is, we don't know when we'll hear from them. All they do is tell you when the submission date is, and it's been 6 months, the last 2 rounds.
Is there a regional representative from FEMA that we deal with, or is it?
No, you just, it's MEMA, FEMA, part Massachusetts. It goes into the state of Massachusetts, but it's federal money. I mean, they list names of contact people, and I contact them, and they don't respond.
I mean, do we even want to contact our local rep or something to intervene?
That's what George just asked, is there a local rep?
Yeah, no, I mean a
No, state rep.
congressman.
State rep.
Yeah.
Bruce Tarr, I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is there, do
When-
we reach a point where we might need
Ellie,
some?
one strategy I've seen another town use in this sort of situation, not specifically with FEMA, but with a granting agency, they basically wrote a letter saying, please tell us no by a certain date because we need to make alternative plans, and they copy their state rep or congressman or whoever is the appropriate, so that they see it's somewhat urgent and that they're prepared to go ahead without the grant, but obviously they'd like the grant, but they said, please tell us no if it's gonna be no by this date, and so we can move on to, alternate course or something
Well,
like that.
I think that's a
We'll
good
work on that.
strategy, right, we'll have to talk about doing that. I think that it's always better to give them an out like that, but we need a date, without a doubt, or a decision.
I mean, if
Okay.
they decide to do it, FEMA decides to do it, you don't have to use the money that the town appropriates. So, you just
But
go
it's
back.
beyond that, it's the design and everything that they'll
It's
go
not
through.
included in our scope right now
Right,
with DRA.
so we would have to include it. All right, Pat, did you have anything else you wanted to?
That's about it. Schedule, meeting next Wednesday. Just let me know if anybody else is coming, so I'll make arrangements to maybe swing by and pick them up, in addition to Carol, and we'll go off and have our meeting and hopefully satisfy their requirements, and they'll have everything else in this week. And we'll move toward, obviously getting the board meeting in September, and if we don't get positive FEMA information, which it sounds at this point is probably gonna be questionable and doubtful for obviously the time frame that you need, and then be ready to authorize the additional work to get done. So we're ready to submit.
All right,
I was just thinking, Madam Chairman, Thursday, isn't there a day set for Senator Tierney to be in town hall, and as well as Senator Tarr? Have you communicated with them on our issue?
No, but see, we get our lion's share of FEMA grants. Peter has been very successful in getting mitigation grants. We use the same engineering firm that wrote this grant for us. I mean, we've gotten millions over the last
1.2.
few years. So to them, this is chicken feed. You know, it's only $400,000. Peter usually asks for the moon and gets it. But no, we'll rattle some cages if we can, whichever ones we can. I don't want to jeopardize the good thing we have with them.
No, absolutely not.
Right.
That's why I think a nicely worded letter, if it comes to that, certainly makes sense. But let's try
With a
local
CC.
contact first.
Yeah.
With a CC to Tara in turn.
Yeah, no, let's try more calls. Maybe there's someone who would be sympathetic to the cause of the plight that we're about to face.
Well, I think politically, isn't Tierney up for election soon? I think he would like
No,
to.
he just got elected.
No, he's gonna run again. He only got a 2-year thing, I think. So he's gotta meet people and get acquainted, and I think.
Well, let's try let's try another call or two first, and then we'll have to pursue other avenues if that doesn't.
Again, you got that 4 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
not a lot of time, right?
No, there isn't.
But
I think
we
we
just resubmitted.
I know.
If we start bugging them now,
That's-
the
we'll work
timing
on it.
may be right for this, but it's not right to start asking them. They probably haven't even looked at the applications yet.
Okay. Well, we'll have to come up with a strategy then on how we're gonna handle this. All right, Pat, you're all set then?
All set, yep.
All right. Carl, any updates?
Nothing new here. Like I said, like Pat said earlier, we're responding to a couple of comments that MSBA had on the submission for the middle high school.
All right.
Frankly, some of them were because it's a new person who's just trying to update his files and asking for information that we had already sent in to his predecessor and things. So
Yeah.
nothing serious, it sounds like. So
Yeah.
we're on track.
That's good.
Great.
All right.
Any others? Then I'll
Make a
entertain a
motion
motion.
to adjourn.
Anyone second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right.
Do we want to just go right in? She did shut off, okay. We're all set. Good evening and welcome to the School Building Committee for Pembroke. This is August 20th, 2013. First thing I'd like to do is approve the minutes from August 6th, 2013. Could I hear a motion?
So move on.
Any second?
Second.
Okay, any comment or discussion?
Some of this isn't right. Oh, I know Chuck's not here. Because it says that you seconded a motion and you weren't here.
Well,
Did you
that was
already
gonna be
approve it?
my comments. I think he confused
I
some of
think
these
this
minutes.
Is not.
Pat,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of these minutes are from the previous meeting.
Yeah, I think we need to pass on these August 6 minutes, because I think they're,
Right, so it wasn't just me.
Minutes
Yeah.
from the previous meeting.
it is, they're,
And
I don't know
think
if
they're
he
not right.
forgot to delete a portion, or if he accidentally put two pieces together.
I
But
can-
all
I can
of
certainly
these
double check,
things,
but anything you
I
can
thought we had
forward
already
to me
voted
that-
on.
That you think might have been, I can have him go back and double check.
I think
all
these
of
are
them.
the
Honestly,
July
I think he has to
16
look at the whole thing, Pat. I think these are not the August 6 minutes.
I think they're
Really?
the July
Yeah.
16
See where it
minutes.
says.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll make a note of that.
Bids
So-
will be
Right.
due.
Okay.
Yes,
Let me make a note of
Oh,
that.
actually, so there was a motion on the table, correct? So-
yes, so
I
we'll
think we
vote
vote
to, table these.
So let me do this, let me just go down. Who made the motion to table those?
No one has made a
Well-
motion to table them
sorry.
yet, but I think we're gonna
Nobody
entertain
had a
them.
motion on the
So
table.
moved.
You had a motion on the thing to go forward. So
No,
think
that's
you
the
gotta vote.
bid deposit.
So,
These are definitely not the August 6th. That
No,
was
these
the
are
July
not.
6th.
Yeah.
then why don't we
Right, but you were
vote
here.
to,
Yeah, but I was here
Yeah.
for these
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
why don't we
That's how I
vote to
did.
deny these,
Okay,
and then that will take care of it,
Okay.
okay?
All right.
All in
so-
favor of approving
We gotta check that.
these minutes? All in favor of denying these minutes?
Well, no, we're just not in favor.
The motion carries, yeah, we'll,
right,
we'll
so
get
these
back
are-
to Chuck. I think these are July's.
motion was
There.
Judge, you
Yeah.
made that
Yeah.
motion, Judge.
Sorry, I should have said that before you.
You know what, I was gonna bring it up
And the
as
second
a comment.
second was Tilly?
But they're gonna be opened up here, so.
I believe those are the July 16th minutes.
Yeah, those aren't.
All right,
Couple of times.
all right, we
Okay.
don't have any invoices nor correspondence. Any old business? I don't believe. Pat, it's up to you.
Well, I
again.
started to say out of turn there that Pembroke, we're right in the middle of the, obviously the bidding period. And again, all of the pre-qualified bidders have, majority have picked up the documents. We've obviously communicated with Andrew Johnson, who's distributing the documents. And the great all the generals have picked up. There were 6 generals, they've all picked up. There's no guarantee that because you pick them up, you're gonna be bidding the job. We certainly hope they are. There is a pre-bid site view for the bidders tomorrow, where they'll come in, and normally there's the one up front, there's usually a low turnout for that. If we have 80 or 90 contractors that picked up, if you see 20, that's a lot. They usually come by on their own pace when there's a job they can look at just by driving by.
Who walks them through?
Kyle will be there and Chuck will be there tomorrow to walk through, but it's basically.
Do you need some from the school there,
No,
or does it
no,
not
it's
Well,
matter?
just to get in the
It's-
building,
it's a walk
so
and
we can
view.
assemble in the cafeteria
Yeah.
first.
Get them in the
Indoors.
building, let them walk around, look at the building, get a view of it before they start putting demolition numbers on it and salvage values on some of the material. They'll walk around the site. There'll be some chatter, but no official questions are asked at that. If they have an official question, they send it in by email or,
Okay.
by letter. But that'll happen tomorrow, and then we're on target for the sub bids on the 5th of September and the 19th for the generals. And the building committee meetings are set so that there's a meeting after each one of those. So the meeting on I believe it's the 10th, we'll have results of the filed sub bids, and we'll be able to get, and that represents about 50% of the job, because there's about 15 categories. And it starts to provide some kind of barometer as how things are going. We'd like to see the sub bids come in, obviously, considerably less, especially where there seems to be a lot more competition within a lot of the subcontractors, where we only have 6 generals, which we hope produce at least 4 or 5 bids. So again, we're in the middle of that. And of course, in the meantime, they're fielding the questions from the various contractors and subcontractors based on any questions they might have. They're assembled and they're responded to in an addenda form. There's a first addenda going out tomorrow, I believe you said,
Today.
Courtney, today. And then there'll be another addenda going out before the file subbids. And we're all corroborating, because we're going back through, like we did on the 60 and the 90s, we're going back through, combing through them as well, because again, we're looking for things that we talked about during the 90s to look at what's included in the bid documents, and those things we're collaborating on. So I'm spending a lot of personal time going through that and coordinating and communicating with Courtney and Kyle. And it's like I said, it's one big effort to obviously look at all of these issues and try and make sure that the majority of these things are covered. And things are going on fairly well. And again, like I said, at this point, I know there's a couple issues on the alternate road issue tonight on the materials, and I think another issue that came up on moisture mitigation of the slabs and so forth. So I think for us, we're right on target. You know, we're comfortable with the bidders. You know, we always like to have a little bit more competition on the GC side, but it is what it is. So again, like I said, as far as we're concerned, we're right, again, like I said, where we expect to be, right in the middle of the bid process, going through the documents.
The bid process ends when?
The 5th, the file subbids come in the 5th,
There's
which
2
is.
dates.
Yeah, and then the 19th is the general
Okay.
construction bids.
Boom, boom, boom.
So everyone keeps on asking me if we are on track, and I say, yes, we are.
Yeah. Yeah,
How
So-
many did you get for the general contractor?
I'm sorry?
How many?
Six.
Six.
There's 6
6
that
have picked up
currently-
plans.
6 have picked up documents.
We don't know that all 6 will bid, but 6 have picked up plans. That's about normal,
Yeah.
yeah.
We've had tough periods of time when we've had 3. We've had other times when we've had 15. So in this environment, 6, yeah, we'd like to see it 8 or 9, but again, like I said, there's been an attrition in the input marketplace. Some of the GCs that we would have expected are no longer around. So again, like I said, there's been an attrition during that whole crunch period of time. So
Okay, anything else?
that's it on our
Great.
end.
Thank you very much. Carl?
Couple things. We brought the bid documents just so you could see the volume of them. Bid documents consist of basically 2 things: plans
sleep
and
tonight.
specifications. The specifications are in these telephone book size things, 2 volumes. I think we break it at the mechanicals. or so.
And just as
Yeah.
a we read every page of every one of these sets that comes out.
Right. And in the, I forget the number of drawings. Do we count the drawings? There's like 100
There's like 250.
250 drawings. These are half-size sets. They're all available electronically to the bidders. So if they want, they can just look at them on the screen. Some are actually sophisticated enough that they can do takeoffs. You know, they can measure things and do area calculations right on the screen. Others ask for hard copies from the printers, which is one of the expenses of the project. You'll later be getting a bill for printing, unfortunately, you know, because the law says you have to provide plans and specs to any bidder that requests them.
I'm seeing about
So-
40% of the bidders pick up hard copies. It used to be everyone had to pick up hard copies, but now there's a little bit of savings with the digital files.
Right. So, and as Pat mentioned, we've already gotten a few calls, but we also had a few loose ends of our own that we knew about. That's why we've issued one addenda already. It has about 7 or 8 pages and a few sketches that go with it of little, you know, typos or things that might have been missed. But we'll get more as all these bidders, you know, the 90 or 100 of them, another, you know, those are another 90 pairs of eyes looking at the drawings. If they have a question, they'll call us or email us. As Pat says, if it deserves a response, the response is in the form of an addendum that can be broadcast to everybody, because one of the big principles of this whole process is it has to be equal footing for everybody. So if somebody calls with a question, we can't give that one person an answer, because then the other 99 people don't have the same answer. So any response is in the form of a written addendum that gets electronically distributed, or if they took up hard copies, it gets mailed to them, actually. So the one reason that the bid dates are when they are is to give us enough time, give them enough time to look at the drawings, give us enough time to respond to their questions too, to make sure they get answered prior to them submitting bids. And as Pat mentioned, tomorrow there is a walkthrough. We'll meet at the school first, so we can just give a general overview of the project to those who are there, and but moreover, to give them a chance to walk through the building, to see, you know, especially the demolition contractors, the asbestos abatement guys. They're the ones most interested in the existing building. The other guys don't care. They care about, you know, the new site, and even then it's probably only the site contractors that care about the site. You know, the plumber doesn't really care, or the fact that we're building in the woods. He's going to look at the drawings and, you know, get his information there. So as Pat says, the turnout for these things is sometimes lower than you think, but that doesn't indicate anything really.
Does a salvage company come in to see what can be salvaged?
Most demolition guys are pretty good at assessing that themselves, Tilly, but they're welcome. Anybody's welcome. It's wide open. You don't even have to, be a plan holder that you've already picked up plans or been pre-qualified. Anyone's technically welcome to come to the thing.
Excuse me, just to interject, there will probably be other calls. Can we get into the school
Right.
and take a look? And what happens in that situation, we always recommend set up another alternative date so that when everybody starts the call, you don't want to bring everybody in separately. Just let them know that we're going to do it again on such and such. And that's when the generals start to get real serious and they start to obviously bring their real team together. And then they'll start coming in with the demolition people, salvage people, and want to get a better look at what's in there. So that'll probably happen after this session.
And I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing a little bit of traffic there too, where people drive up, park,
Yeah.
and walk the site on their own, not necessarily just tomorrow.
Yeah.
People who, particularly are trying to get an edge and try to be smart about how best to manage the site work, how to cut down the trees, what salvage value is in the trees and the earth and the any other materials. They'll look at access and they're particularly the 5 or 6 general contractors in there, site contractors will get serious. But again, it's public land, it's open, they're entitled. It's good that it's happening now before school starts.
Right.
It will, the bids are actually due though, when school will be back in session. We do have to, and we've, warned people that, they're not to be on the
After
property
hours.
during school hours.
Right.
So they may come in very early, they may come in on weekends prior to that. So that's
Carl,
the
what's the target
process.
date that they're gonna go and they're gonna start clearing or put the fences up that we can't get in? What's the target week on that? End of October?
Hopefully earlier than that. Depends on how quick we can both analyze the bids, make sure there's no irregularities, and recommend an award of contract. And if everything's clean, then you can award the contract. Generally, the notice to proceed is issued immediately,
Right. Okay.
and they have to mobilize within 10 days. So
Because we
that's
just have to
10
remember
business
that,
days,
you
2
know, what
weeks.
Concom requested,
Yes.
so we just have to make sure that.
Right, so it could be as early as early October. That would be the
All right, so that only
absolute
gives us a month,
earliest,
so they,
you know?
all right.
Yeah.
But you know what, they wouldn't wanna be out there much later than that anyways, cause a lot of the plans will start to disappear.
I know, but we just
So
need to
September's
remind them.
a good opportunity.
Just to clarify one comment that Cal made, when he said everything being clean, that means that there's no protest, there's nobody, the second bidder's not protesting, the low guy's bidder. You see a lot of that in this business, where after the bids are open, people are looking at the documents, looking for if the guy's second by close margin, they're looking at it, it's a substantial project, and if there's any wiggle room that they think they have some kind of chance to overturn that particular award, then they would obviously file a protest. I mean, you see that among the subs, and you see it all the time, and usually the AG's office can do a fairly quick review or something like that, so, just to let you know.
That's why we try to be, very careful and everything, done proper to minimize that, because even if it just costs you some time, that's valuable at this point, that we want to try to avoid that whenever we can. And likewise, so we think about that when if there are some last minute questions that come in and that deserve an answer, unless it's something, fairly major, if it's too close to the bid date, we don't want to issue an addendum at the last minute because, somebody might miss it and you'd cause an otherwise good bid to have to be rejected because he didn't acknowledge the last addenda. Or, there could be some complaints if you issue something substantial right at the last minute, and it takes a lot of time for the bidders to calculate how much it's worth. If they have to make calls to the other vendors, and they'll say, can you move the bid date? And again, that's kind of a hassle that we want to avoid if we can.
Some of the bidders are pretty ingenious. We've already got one inquiry from one of the file sub-bidders, and looking for information on the pre-qualification of that particular trade. And they'll do that so that they can start looking at that right now, so that if in fact that bidder is the low bidder and they're second, then they can go in and perhaps find something in those qualifications that may be a misrepresentation. We've seen that happen. We've seen that happen in the past where there's been an overturn. So I mean,
Well, you all got
they're
copied on that
they're pretty aggressive.
information,
They're very
right,
aggressive
from
on
the
making sure
unions. on
But
the
they're-
one general
yeah,
contractor.
Oh, yeah, they.
So if that general contractor ends up low,
Yeah.
they will, they'll dig for something to
There's a lot
try and
of
complain
there.
about. Right.
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Has it been looked into if the newer furnace at Pembroke could be used in any other town building?
Where did we stand with that? I'm trying to recall. We obviously didn't reuse it in the new Pembroke, but
I think we said deliver it to a certain distance, or, yeah, I think there's.
yeah, I think we did. But we'll follow up on that, Peter. I think we did say salvage it. I'm not sure we directed them where to deliver it for the owner's use.
Right.
Because it is relatively new, it's got some life in it. So,
We should have leased it.
so I think that's it for the bidding. The bid opening, by the way, too, is a public event. If you want to be there, it's at 2 o'clock on those days. The 5th and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
20.
This file's a bit
Forget the
open,
dates.
it's lengthy, because there's
Yeah.
probably
And the
80
19th.
bids are gonna be open.
5th and
you know,
the
by
19th.
category. So it's fairly lengthy.
So-
DC be quick.
But the 19th is the one you might
Do
want to
people
be at.
call in or
No,
just
no, no.
deliver?
Oh, no, no,
They
no.
have
It's
to
gotta be
deliver
They hand
by
deliver.
hand,
deliver.
signed,
Yeah.
sealed.
To Carol's office or to
this
one of you?
office.
To this
Yeah.
office,
To this
to Mike?
office, yeah.
And it's very, very specific. You come in here with a bid that's, 201, you can't accept it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You better make sure all your clocks are in order.
Make sure those at Fridays.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on Wednesdays.
Okay.
We avoid Fridays. We avoid Fridays.
Everyone's knocking on the
window.
That'd be perfect. Town hall's only open 4 hours.
It's not open at all.
You have to take them outside, they have the logs outside, yeah.
Yeah.
He'll be all looking in.
Oh, this is really exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, getting close.
Getting there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if there are any more questions about bidding process.
No.
The other item on the agenda, or one item on the agenda from last meeting, was about the secondary access drive material. We did go back and talk with our consultants and geotech consultant, the civil engineer, the landscape architect, and put together a memo with some options there. I don't know, did you get copies?
I emailed them, but I don't have a hard copy in front of me if you have an extra one.
We've got some extra ones. Can go
Oh,
around.
Michelle has one.
I can share.
look on it if necessary.
Okay. No, double-sided. So, I wasn't here, but I understand the concerns were about being able to plow it, being able to ride a bike on it, to be able to, I guess, maybe even walk on it. I'm not sure if that was one of them, but the specified crushed stone, which was on the plans right now, is 3/4 inch crushed stone, compacted, with swales on either side. And that's what was used in the stormwater calculations done for Conservation Commission too.
So this is another one that says an half-inch.
No, this is a new suggestion, a new recommendation actually, Tilly.
So the swales will direct the water.
The swales are still basically hoping to direct the water down, but there's a slope, so there's only so much cross pitch you can get. Most of the water on the swales is going down into the ground.
Hopefully most of it's gone down before it gets to the swales as well with the crushed.
Yeah, we don't have the ability, the width and it's not really a right-of-way, but you can think of it as a right-of-way, George, to really make a swale in the sense that you think of a swale, a ditch. It's more just a slight depression on either side of the main path. But the geotech engineer understood the concerns, I think, and the civil engineer as well, and suggested we could go down to 1/2 inch material. So it's a finer grade. In essence, you get a smoother finish, more tightly compact, and yet, as you can see by the answers to the questions, still remains quote unquote permeable. The water flows through it. So this is not just the swales we're talking about. This is the main path. The water flows through it, which is, what the calculations were based on. the stormwater calculations. And remember too that the other issue that we have going is there was this new little wetland found here, and when you draw the circles around it, the first circle is the 50 feet, do not disturb. The second radius is 75 feet, where you're not supposed to have any impervious material. The third one is 100 feet, which you're not supposed to have any buildings. We clearly don't have any buildings, that's way over here. But we do have we actually have a little bit of this roadway already in that, which was approved. But we have some of the pathway, the secondary access drive, within that 75-foot too. So when we went to Conservation Commission, we did anticipate, we said this would not be paved. It would be, permeable for the water to flow through it there. And so that's why we're trying to still hold on to that in the suggestion, but respond to the concerns about plowing, walking on it, riding bikes on it. And we think the half-inch material does that. The issue with going to if we were to pave it, which everyone's familiar with, if we paved it, obviously very much easier to plow and maintain, and easier or more familiar for riding bikes. People understand what that is. But the issue is twofold. One is, just that issue right there, but also the fact that for this entire length, that pavement, if it were regular pavement, we need to pick up that drainage now, because now the water's going to sheet off that. We only have a little bit of area on the sides to try to absorb it. And, our engineers say we'd really end up having to put some underground structures in there to catch it and keep it on the town's property and put it back in the ground. We could go to the option of the same kind of pavement we have here, which is permeable pavement. It has a lot of stone underneath it, the water does run through it, but to you and I, to the naked eye, it looks like pavement, regular pavement. We could do that here, but as it's mentioned, in the woods here, that's going to be a maintenance issue, because even if you don't put sand on it, which you probably would end up doing because it's fairly steep in section, but even if you didn't put sand, just think about all the leaves and branches that are going to fall on there and decompose, and eventually it's going to fill up those pores, and you'd have to get a vacuum truck out there probably a couple times a year to vacuum it, to keep it porous. Remember, the reason we use it here only is because we don't anticipate sand being used there. It's not a roadway, it's just a playground. And so we think the maintenance here is going to be fairly minimal in terms of needing to vacuum it. Maybe every couple of years or something, or less frequently. But if it were here in the middle of the woods, we think in order to keep it, permeable, you'd be into some maintenance there. So, but at least if it were porous pavement, it would satisfy the Conservation Commission in not being paved within that radius. The other thing to keep in mind, either option of pavement, whether it's pavement with drainage structures or porous pavement, is going to be a bump in the budget. We don't have that estimated yet because we haven't really designed it, but whereas going to the half-inch crushed stone is virtually negligible in terms of the budget.
Right.
What's the benefit between the half-inch and the three-quarter?
Just that it's finer grain, Tilly, so that it's a little smoother and compacts a little better. So, because I think the worry about riding bikes was that, people are thinking of crushed stone, like, you take a turn and your wheel, your wheel's going to dig in, or, it's not like that at all. But still, if you go to smaller stone, you can compact it more. It's more like a roadway.
You're talking crushed stone too, correct?
Right.
Yes, we're talking crushed stone,
We're not talking
not
about
pea stone.
little
So
round
it's not
stone that move
rounded.
around.
It
This is
doesn't
crushed
move.
stone,
It
locks in
doesn't,
together,
it locks together, but it has
You need more
voids.
of it, don't you, if it's smaller?
Same volume, it's gonna be it's a little bit more money. I think it's a little
Yeah.
bit more money because the smaller the gradation,
Yeah.
again, you have more volume in the stone in that particular cubic yard. So it's a little bit more per cubic yard.
Just, slightly, but
That's the
it compacts
opposite
better.
from last meeting, we got a pamphlet that said that the three-quarter was better.
That was the original recommendation by.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
by
Ohio Department of Transportation,
Yeah.
or Pennsylvania, where they're trying to use more of that. Yeah.
Could you put a 5-foot sidewalk and then put the half-inch stone on either side, and then your swales? That way there, it's good for the walkers, the bikers, and it, you know, it would keep the center of the plow, so it wouldn't be digging into the stone.
Well,
But it still would-
that's what we asked them at some point. I don't know
Wasn't
if
it
we
the original
included here.
plan? I thought it was a strip of pavement.
The original
All
was to
arguing-
be pavement, but that's where the engineers started saying, even that much pavement, they felt like they needed to add drainage structures. There-
Because,
When I
you
go
know,
out and
doesn't
read
the,
previous estimates.
the NOI, where is it? Porous asphalt is proposed in areas that will not be highly trafficked, but will be used for emergency access and pedestrian travel only. So
That
that's
was-
that,
That was in the original design, for a porous pavement, not for a regular standard asphalt.
this is the notice of intent, and this is the proposed conditions by the conservation.
Mhm.
That was the original notice of intent, yeah.
That was until they
did-
found that wetland.
Right, that was prior to
The other
the discovery
wetland.
of that isolated.
So the
wetland.
only place that we have to deal with is that area of wetland. So if we put, you know, the hot top at the lower end and the upper end, you know, and
Well-
it seems to me like they're allowing it in that corner.
Per our discussions with our engineers, there's drainage issues as you go along with the pavement. So even if you did have an impervious surface that was only 5 feet wide, you'd still be putting structures in, on the other side, closer to the Johnson's property to handle the water.
Is there money still set aside for Elm Street? The 300,000 that was talked about at the beginning?
Yeah, that's not
That's
part
not-
of our
that's not part
project.
of the-
You mean that the town voted?
No. With this project here, $300,000.
Oh, back, yeah, early
Uh-huh.
on. Yeah, we've allocated that between
To-
both the drainage in the driveway and development of this.
We got catch
Right.
basins.
Yes.
Mike has a question or comment.
Are fire trucks gonna be able to go up that road?
We believe so. Both the width of it, the cleared, you know, pathway, and the grade of it, fire trucks should be able to make that, Mike. I mean, that's, you
That's
know,
the whole intent of it, right?
That's the prime intent of it.
Right, I mean, if we
You know,
remember, you know, when we
Well,
started
yeah,
talking
that's
about
why
this.
Vehicle.
I
that's-
want a
Right.
definite, yes, it can.
Right, right. I mean, the whole reason why we did this in the beginning, like way back when, was just to have, I mean, look at where the building's gonna be. It's so far back, and we're gonna have 770 kids there. And God forbid, there's an emergency and we need an access in or out. That's what this road was for. I mean, hopefully it'll never get used. Hopefully. But
Other than
it's
foot
there.
traffic.
Yeah, I mean, kids riding their bikes or walking, you know, but, you know, for vehicles, you know, but
But I thought the purpose of it was for emergency
it
vehicles.
is, it is.
Yes.
It's just, right.
But,
right.
so Mike's question is pretty simple. Does the fire
Right.
truck go up there? Because if not, we told the town something that's not gonna happen.
No,
Right.
the reason I maybe sounded qualified, Mike, was only because of the issue of maintenance. You know, we talked about if it is this material and there's some issue about plowing it, you know, then the town, you know, may or may not choose to plow it every time just to avoid the maintenance. You know what I mean? And so that was the only hesitation. It's certainly, you know, when it goes in and it's cleared, it's drivable. It's like a New Hampshire, Vermont, you know, country road.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And it's cleared, it's wide enough, it's graded, you know.
And early on, there was talk of it being gated,
Yes, it is gated so that, you know,
like
The,
crash bar type gate,
just a chain and a lock.
Chain and bollards.
a
You know,
lock,
2 post chains and a
so
lock.
they can't drive through it.
No, you can't drive through it like for the police for normal patrolling or something. They wouldn't drive through. It's only for emergency that either they'd unlock it or in a real emergency, fire engines generally just drive right through those
Well,
things and break it.
right.
Yeah,
But,
that's why I call it a breakaway gate.
yeah,
Right.
I mean, they do make them.
that's the idea. But we need to keep out ordinary traffic, you
Right.
know, on a
Right.
day-to-day basis. Yeah.
So it's just 2 pipes with a chain across it?
Yeah,
No gate?
no gate, no swing gate, no.
But
And
it's
there's a footpath around the post, so if you're riding your bike, you can ride or walk without hopping the chain, so.
Right, but those are enough to keep cars off, right?
Oh, yeah.
Concrete
Yeah.
bollards,
Yeah, and I think the amount of foot traffic is being overstated. I mean, if
I
you talk,
agree.
if you talk to
Yeah.
Ken Woodbury, who's the crossing guard there, he'll probably tell you there's less than a half a dozen kids
Yeah,
Yeah.
We use this right now every
I
day.
mean, we did hope that. you
Right.
know,
Maybe a couple more
because
kids would
right
start.
now, this is the only way. And there are a few more houses, it's a little denser down here because you're closer to a couple intersections, that there may be a few more kids walking this way than used to walk this way. But it's probably not a big increase, who are actually gonna walk there. But, it's still nice for access to the woods and the nature trails to
Right.
obviously have a
The
path.
community may
have-
be using it,
Yeah.
even if
Yeah.
it's
Walk up
not
it.
school traffic.
So did you already check with the Concom to see about this change?
We haven't.
We haven't voted on it, so.
We
No,
have
I
said,
know we- I know.
since we filed, these were the plans that were filed, and, what was the date on them, back, April 11th. So the project has advanced quite a bit since then. In very minor ways, the site plan has changed. Like this radius went from, say 30 feet to 15 feet. So there's a slight change. It's actually, less pavement. Or, the configuration of, remember, I think we necked down one. So because there's some very minor changes, we plan to refile these 100% drawings now to the Conservation Commission, just to be conscientious and say, to acknowledge, there have been updates. We think that they would rule that the changes are, the legal word I think is
Minor.
de minimis, of no substantial something or other that require a new public hearing or anything like that, and they would just bless it and say fine. But so we do plan on refiling it in any case. If this went, from what was said originally, permeable pavement to, this half-inch crushed stone, I don't think they'd have an issue. But it is a change, and they need to know about it. But
They would probably give it to the consultant anyway.
they
to see.
might run it by them again.
Yeah.
These minor little changes that have happened around the site. So in any case, we plan on refiling the drawings.
It's not gonna be.
And for the other two options,
It's school property.
that would probably require some geotech work.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Above the cost of materials.
One of the things that Concom pointed out is wherever we have a drainage, one of these natural drainage, rain gardens or things, we have to do test pits. And so if we end up adding some drainage structures, we gotta do some test pits now to know what the character of that material is, how fast it accepts water, if we're really gonna be counting on it to put in some.
Yeah, that's even though, if you
So-
look at the cross-section of the permeable pavement, you've got 2 feet of material underneath it, and it's not inexpensive. We're taking out 2 feet.
Right.
Putting in 2 feet of varying degree of sieve analysis material on there, so it's an expensive process, and, again, like I said,
No, I was just gonna point out that you can do test pits all here, here, and here, and then you can assume, like in the middle, will be a similar type of soil.
Yeah, that's what.
But if
the
you go to a
engineers did
different
there.
area,
Yeah, but-
you could have totally different soils than
Right,
what.
we don't have any test pits here, so we need them now.
Yeah.
As opposed to there, like George said, we didn't have one exactly in the middle there. We had one over here and we had one over here, because they were done, a year ago or before the final design. And, they were sufficient to engineer those drainage areas, but we don't have anything in these areas, so we would need to do some test pits.
Well, I have a question. If we went with this half-inch stone, and in 5 years, the town says, wow, this is really being used a lot more than anyone anticipated, we think we should pave it. Could all the things you're talking about still happen? Could the town take it on themselves and say, look, we think this should be paved, and go
Yeah,
about
nothing-
engineering it? I mean,
Nothing
how
we're doing
difficult would that
preclude
be?
that. In that regard.
It would be
How about
big
maintenance?
bucks.
If you pave
No, I
it,
realize that.
the life of pavement, I don't know what it is. Let's say it's 10 years or whatever, and then that thing needs to be repaved or whatever it is, versus every year having to do repairs with crushed stone, half-inch crushed stone. I would think there's some repair work that needs to be done periodically,
Well,
right?
the use of this isn't a road that's gonna be used every day by
Right.
vehicles, so it's not gonna require the same amount of maintenance that
The
But
only
it's still
maintenance-
you
It
still
will
have to
be-
keep it after plows come through in the winter.
you're probably gonna
That
look
a
at
fire
every.
truck can
probably
come down.
run a grader through it, maybe, once a year, maybe run a grader through after the snow season and just get it all pool tabled over, you know?
Because in that sense, it's not like a New Hampshire road or Connecticut,
We don't know.
I mean, Vermont road
But
where
it's gonna be the
it's
school
seeing
bus.
traffic all winter long. Here, there's no traffic on it, except the
Right.
plow.
Yep.
And so the stone is gonna hold its, you know, its compaction. It's not gonna get pushed around a lot. It's not gonna get washed away in rain by itself. What happens on those, you know, country roads is when there's traffic, you get a small pothole, the rain, and then it grows, you know, and the pothole gets bigger because the water sits there, the pothole gets bigger. It's a vicious circle. And so that's why you have to fill those potholes every now and then or move the material back
Muddy in
in.
the spring too, that dig into those a little bit, but.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be stone dust mixed in with this half-inch stone, or just stone?
No, I don't think they want fines in there to
At all.
bind it. They want the pores. But because it's angular, you know, crushed stone, you get voids, I guess, Peter. You can still compact it, you know, to 95, I think it's 95% for roadways. So,
Does this address at all what Rob's concerns were? I wasn't following what he was concerned about. Does this make it better or worse?
well, yeah, in the memo, Carol, I think these were all the concerns that were brought up,
Okay.
mainly by Rob, but I think
Okay.
others at the group.
So this makes it
The-
better based
the-
on what his question was?
Yes, we think so. The one that's the wild card is maintenance. It's hard to predict
Yeah.
what's going to be needed. As Pat says, maybe it's a greater, you know, we hope it's not a piece of equipment that the town doesn't own and you have to go hire or something just for this. But it's hard to predict. I think it's fairly simple and a lot depends on, you know, how much snow you get, how much plowing you do required.
The stone dust, is that environmentally dangerous?
Stone dust?
Yeah.
No, it's
There's
just.
no stone dust.
No stone.
I
When you
understand, but I
use
was-
stone dust, it sort of acts like cement. It sort of binds it up,
Yeah.
and then the water can't go through.
Defeats the whole
We want the water to go
impermeability
through,
issue,
right?
you know?
Yeah, it defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Pete, do we have a grader in town or no?
Nope. When we do the dirt roads that we have, we rent one. And we haven't rented one in probably 2 or 3 years because we've been putting the ground up hot top on those dirt roads and it's holding up, you know, a lot better than
It's
it used
similar to
to.
this, almost, you know, this type of material. True. Okay.
Only this is more natural.
Yeah.
This is,
Right.
you know, never been.
From the high point to Elm Street, what is the difference in elevation? Because it doesn't seem that steep to me.
No.
124.96.
And that's the high point.
20, yes, that's the high point. 28 feet, and that's about 300. I think it's like 300.
How about at the corner?
something.
At the corner, you know, we're right at the corner. What is the elevation at the corner?
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 117. Yeah, it actually hits a high point right here, 120. Right about there.
There,
Yeah, and it's kind of flat through there.
Well,
So
that's where the
120,
water would be.
24 feet. It's pretty steady up. I think the steepest part right here, you can see the contours are close. It's a little over 10% for that short stretch. But otherwise, here it's very flat. Here it's about 5%. Here it's about 7 to 8%.
Will you be changing that grade
We
at all?
can't change it all that much because we're so close to the borders. We can flatten it out just a little bit.
How about the high banking when you get up near the top? Is there again any?
Right here, there's one bank, you know, that makes you feel like you're in a bowl, because there's a tree there, and, you know, when they regraded that tree, held the, you know, or a couple trees on the property line right there. So that, I mean, that's another reason we want the water just to go down, because we can't direct it sideways, it's got nowhere to go. And the snow, fortunately, at that point, you can push the snow one way, as you're driving in on the left side, the grade is fairly level or actually drops. But on the right side, you're in a bowl, so you gotta push the snow all one direction if you were plowing,
Okay.
at least at that point.
And how wide is it gonna be?
Overall, it's 12 feet wide, 6 foot of this crushed stone material, and then 3 feet on either side of gravel.
6 feet.
The distance between the walls, I think, is like 20 to
25.
25 feet.
20 feet.
Peter, how wide is the aerial ladder?
Could go measure it real quick.
I think the chief said 12 feet with an
Tape measure?
8 foot wheelbase. You know, he wanted 8 foot where the wheels are.
Russ is down there right now.
And
And
we're giving them
12 foot overall.
And how much are we giving them?
So
We're giving them 8, or did I hear 6?
6 is.
The wheels are gonna be off the, gonna be in the dirt.
Well,
In mud season, that's the heaviest vehicle we own, and it's gonna be responding because it's a 3-story
did
building.
he change
I
that?
think-
Have you
Why
ever
don't you
talked to
check
the
this
chief
out?
about this too?
I don't think so.
We had 6 in the middle, and we had.
Oh, and the
gravel
half-inch material on the sides?
Right. I think we stopped it when we had.
So this would be 12 foot for the
Here's
entire,
what's in
all stone?
I think we were doing 8
Smart thinking.
all stone and then the swales on each side. A loam swell.
That's what I thought. I thought they were gonna be changing it to pretty much all stone so that they had access
Yeah.
all the way across.
So we went wider because it was stone versus, because before we were doing, and what we had in the earlier estimate was a porous pavement that was like a
Right.
less wide strip. It was
Right,
6 foot
strip,
wide.
right.
And then we had gravel on both sides.
Yep.
But when we went to crushed stone, we had to make it wider.
So we talking about basically 12 feet wide crushed stone at this point?
Or 8.
8.
8 feet, not 6.
So to Mike's point, the wheels are.
Mm-hmm.
If the wheels are 8 feet, you have to be perfect.
Well, we can increase the
I mean,
width,
that
it doesn't
can-
do
that
anything
can-
to the drainage.
Right. We can increase the width.
Can it go wider?
You can go, you can go 10.
It can go wider?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, we were originally at overall 12 when you added the 6 and then. just-
Yeah, we want to keep the overall sort of disturbed graded part at 12. That's sort of the max. We don't want to go wider there.
Okay.
But you could put
So-
more stone
so
out to
we
say
could-
10
You
feet.
could go to
Could put
10,
more
Right,
stone.
we
you
could
could go to
do
10,
that.
you're probably gonna have to
Yeah,
do that.
sure.
Well,
Mike, how wide do you think that is? I'm trying
Pete's
to-
on the phone with him now.
Peter's gonna Measure it right now.
Yeah. I recall asking,
call
and I
someone.
think he said he wanted 8 feet. You know, I don't think the wheels are literally 8 feet wide, but if the pavement or the drivable part were 8 feet wide, his guys would be okay.
But you probably want a little bit wider to make the turn at the top, right?
Yeah, yeah. At that corner.
At that elbow right
Yeah.
there.
And you're sure the
Truck.
truck,
The
yeah,
radii, the
Yes.
radii is pretty big, yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
okay.
Both there and then when you meld into the, you use the full width of the roadway coming in there, you can make the turns.
So if we increase it, is it just a cost
a
issue
few more
for us?
dollars, yeah, for this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so besides the width, are there any other questions then? We'll wait until Peter gets back just to do that, but
Mm-hmm.
you guys have any other question on the crushed stone, 1/2 inch versus 3/4, or?
Just that circle I do is, to me, that would be the most critical area where that water is. Because that's supposed to be a no cut. And that would be most likely if there's any water.
Yeah, this really isn't
Right.
water, it's just a real low spot. that
Yeah.
has wetland soils.
That would be where all the rain
Um,
would come down,
so-
the low spot.
But
There's
it's
a,
what it does anyways?
there's a
Yeah.
stretch of the driveway there that's within
So
that
that,
75.
what are you going to do that would be different than the rest of that area?
Nothing. If we go with the 1/2 inch crushed stone, because it's all permeable.
It'll be the same amount,
Yes.
everything else.
Yes, yeah. So the water would go through it,
Yeah.
so we wouldn't be impacting this. That's why they allowed this plan
They do that,
the first
right.
time. They recognized we wouldn't be impacting
But the
this.
water, it does flow this way, is that correct?
In this immediate area, there's a little bit of flow this way.
Yeah.
But generally, the water is flowing down towards Elm Street and
Yeah.
sort of diagonally this way and this way, away from, this. Actually, there's a sort of, this wetland here.
Yeah, well, that comes
in the
down.
back. But the low spot is Elm Street, it keeps going down.
Across the street.
So,
And when you were talking about test pits before, wasn't there something that you had to do test pits from the BSC had told you?
Yes,
More than-
what George mentioned, when we designed these areas,
Hmm.
we didn't have a test pit exactly in the center of that area. We might have had one over here and over here and over here. So in the order of conditions from Conservation Commission, they approved the plan, but they asked us,
to, at the time of construction, to do a test pit right there.
Oh, I
Just
thought
to
it was
confirm.
north. I thought it was
No,
the
it
other.
would-
There are some
In
areas.
each of these drainage areas, so there's one here, one there.
Right.
Everywhere you can see the blue, it's not really water, but it's a low spot, a rain garden. So we need to do a test pit before construction, just to confirm that the material is consistent there. So we'll have the contractor do that with his backhoe, but that's why it's in the bid documents, he knows he has to do that. We located, I don't know, I think it's like 10 or 12 additional test pits that the contractor has to do.
So,
Good.
quick question. So are you recommending the half-inch aggregate versus the three-quarter
Yes.
at this point?
Yes. And we need to confirm the width, but I was speaking what was there previously, but if we had to go to 10 feet, it sounds like the way to go.
We could easily do that.
In terms of the
Right.
drainage, yes.
For
Yeah,
example,
won't be an issue.
the gravel that's there now, our estimator has about a little over $12,000 on it. So that's with the 3/4 inch. So
Okay.
that would go up a little bit with the 1/2 inch, and then also adding, a couple of feet to the width. It would, knowing that the overall is 12,000, it's not gonna,
12,000 for all the gravel going in?
just in that access road, right?
Oh, on, yeah, the whole road.
Right, so if you increase it a little bit in width, it's not gonna be, a
$6 to
$20,000
10
job.
is,
thing.
Is that 40%?
Probably looking at like
40%, so
Yeah.
Another
another 5,000.
$5,000.
Yeah.
Max.
Could go to 17,000.
Yeah, so it's not crazy.
And then maybe a
And then it's a
little
little more
increase to go
cost
to the
per
1/2 inch.
yard, so it's $20,000
Yeah, total.
total. What used to be 12.
Do we need to vote on this tonight?
Yeah,
We're just,
we were just waiting for
gonna
Pete.
try to see if we,
I don't see his head anymore. He may have run over there to
Eddie ran
measure
to
it.
the
Stroke out his day.
He was on the phone.
Get it cleared up.
So, are there any other conversations about any other questions on this? Because if not, we can take a short recess. Oh, he's
We have
back.
another item. Oh,
Okay.
yes. It's good work, Pete.
It's 8'3" wide and 41.5 feet long.
Mhm.
So the wheels are less than 8 then, obviously, right? Or the wheels are 8 feet.
How about a 10-foot wide path?
That would do it because it's only 8'3".
Yeah.
All right, I'll make,
That's what we're discussing, is just going wider. Just-
I'll-
It's to
I'll
go
make a
wider
mo-
with the
It's gotta
crushed
be
stone.
like 7, so if you had a 10-foot road, you'd be fine. Right?
I'll make a motion.
Yes, George.
I guess the wheels-
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve half-inch crushed stone, 10-foot wide, secondary access path.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Yes.
Pat, what do you think?
I think it's a lot better than you had. I think it'll work. I think you'll have a little maintenance on it, but I think it'll work. With the 1/2 inch, which where it's crushed, should lock in pretty well. You'll have to run a grader through there on I'm guessing unless you really have some heavy traffic a couple of times a year. But I think you're gonna run it through at least once a year. Come the spring, you'll run a grader through, 4 hours rental, once a year, maybe twice a year.
Save up your lunch money, Carol.
I mean, we gotta have 3 principals in this school too, so.
Just found your grader.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Any other questions or discussion? No? All right, then let's vote. We have, George made a motion that we go ahead and allow the 10-foot wide, 1/2 inch crushed stone. All in favor?
Was there a second?
Yes, there was.
Yes, Tilly, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1. Okay.
And that was?
Peter.
Okay, motion carries. All right. All right, and Carl, you said you had something else?
I guess that's sort of old business in the sense that we had talked about materials before, and we wanted to update you with one of our concerns, let's call it, on materials that were specified and what's currently in here. We want to recommend a change here, and it's going to also cost some dollars, so that we didn't want to just make it as a technical change ourselves without sharing it with you. Remember when we re-estimated this, we came in fairly significantly under the budget. Our last estimate, 90%, right, Pat? You know,
Yeah.
and we had thought, we talked about, you know, are there ways to upgrade the project that, in a way that, you know, gives you sort of long-term payoff. And one of them was to go with more linoleum in the classrooms as opposed to vinyl tile. You don't need to wax it. So in the long term, it pays off after, you know, there's been various studies. Sometimes the break-even point is about 6 or 7 years. You pay a little bit more upfront, but between the reduction in maintenance, it pays off after like 6 or 7 years. And so we did that. We incorporated that change, but that sort of triggered another issue in that nowadays, with environmental concerns, the flooring manufacturers have gone to a glue, an adhesive that is basically water-based, not oil-based, because nobody wants
VOCs.
fumes, volatile organic compound, VOCs, inside buildings anymore. So virtually every adhesive used today is water-based. So that means if there's any water in the concrete slab, if it's not, you know, the right dryness before they put down their floor, it'll dissolve the glue. And with linoleum, it's a sheet good. It's even sort of more impermeable than vinyl tile. It traps that moisture, and you may have seen it in some installations. You get this little bubble, right? Where the glue is dissolved and the vapor is trying to come up, and so you get a little bubble. And in vinyl tile, if it happens there with more joints or in materials with joints, the joints sometimes open up. And then it's kind of a vicious circle because you're washing the floor with water. More water gets in that open joint, dissolves more glue, that sort of thing. So we're very careful, or more careful nowadays, in specifying the dryness of concrete. But unfortunately, concrete by itself has a lot of moisture in it, and you have to wait a long time for it to dry out. In recent years, there's basically two ways to go. One way is to add a chemical admixture to the concrete itself that, I don't know exactly the chemistry of it, but somehow it binds up the water. It holds the water in the concrete, that it won't come through.
It theoretically traps it between the top and the bottom layer of the concrete as it cures,
Yeah.
so that the water, well, this is the claim, that it doesn't go up into the, you know, the flooring adhesives.
It doesn't affect the strength of the concrete at all. That's one method. Another method is a topical method to, you know, pour the traditional concrete and then come along and put another coating, another topping on top that's impermeable, that doesn't let the water vapor through. The first one is what we had originally, the chemical admixture. It's less expensive. The second one is a little more expensive, but it's actually more compatible with more of the flooring manufacturers. The flooring manufacturers don't quite trust that first one that traps the moisture in the concrete, and so they say, we won't warranty our floor on that concrete. But the concrete admixture guy says, don't worry, we'll warranty the floor. So it's a little, you know, unusual. You got the concrete admixture warranting your linoleum floor, that it's going to stick. And it's a new product, but because it's less money than this topical one, people have been considering it, and that's why we frankly considered it, and we're willing to think of it during the design stages here. But considering that we have more linoleum now, and we had some room in the budget, we recommend going to the topical treatment. It's more proven. We will get the warranties from the flooring manufacturers individually. We're able to test it in conventional ways to test the humidity of the concrete before they put the floor down. So we think it's the better way to go.
If moisture gets through the crevices in the linoleum, will it still be able to dry with that treatment on the cement? Or is that going to
If moisture from the top
Yes.
gets through,
Yes.
you'd still have the same issue. If the joints opened up, you know, because of some failure in the adhesive, and water got in there, the water would still dissolve the adhesive you know, there.
I think we
But the idea, the whole issue is not water from above, it's water vapor from below, and particularly on the ground floor slab.
And
because,
how much more is this process?
the barrier one, just in very rough numbers, the admixture product is about less than $1 a square foot. This product is like $3 a square foot. So $2 a square foot times 100,000 square feet of concrete. So it's a couple $100,000 hit to the budget. But again, you need to do something, we think. And the other way to look at this too, by the way, is it is possible. I mentioned there's a little difference between the concrete slab that's touching the ground floor, and the ones that are on the second and third floors. The ones on the ground are more susceptible. There's more vapor coming from the ground than the ones, so-called elevated slabs. When those are poured, before we put on the topical treatment, we can test those. And it may prove that they're dry enough, and we don't need to put that topical, and we'll get a credit. And so we might not need to spend that $3 a foot on those. It's about 40,000 square feet. There's about 60,000 feet on the ground, 40,000 feet on the upper two slabs. So we could save that money. Whereas if we buy the barrier one initially, we're buying it, you know, because it goes in everywhere. You don't have that opportunity to save. So it's possible that the difference could be lessened.
And you would have the same problem with tile as you would with,
like a VCT.
yeah.
Adhesives have different.
Because the one reason you go to linoleum is because it's cheaper. Now you got to spend $300,000
No,
to
it
put
wasn't cheaper.
Not cheaper initially. It's cheaper in the long run. It's more expensive initially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When do you have to worry about the VOCs? Is it when the glue's drying, or if it's dry, you don't still get VOCs, do you?
Yeah. Nowadays, unfortunately, you got to worry about it at any time, Peter, because we're doing, you know, a LEED school, an environmentally sensitive school. You're not allowed to have any VOCs at any time. They care about the workers as much as they care about the occupants. So yeah, we can't change the glue,
And the waxing
unfortunately.
doesn't really
What about just steam cleaning this instead of water? Is that
Yeah, again, it's
or
not,
is it
it's
the
not
water coming through?
it's not the water on top that's so much the issue, Tilly. It's the curing
I think we have
and the
welded
vapor
seams.
coming from below.
That linoleum itself is.
We do have welded
How much is
seams.
that?
Yeah.
Ballpark. We're going to spend on linoleum, say, on the first floor.
$5 or $6 a square foot.
Now, that goes like-
The
goes up
problem is,
50%.
I know you're sort of doing the math like we think about it too sometimes, Eric, but it's very disruptive if you have to redo the floor.
Yeah.
You're occupying it.
And that's what I say. You got to redo a section of the floor. you
Because
redo
not only
section
do you
of
have
the
to
floor.
redo the floor, you have to redo the floor and put down this topical stuff if the vapor is too hot.
Right. It's not going to dry over time once you put that linoleum
It won't.
down.
Once the linoleum like
Sealing it in.
seals it. So
You'll get some drying from underneath. I mean, you'll get some drying. You'll always
You know.
get drying, but again, like I said, it's when you're putting it down that
Yeah.
becomes the issue.
yeah,
Well, how do they manage in Florida and in areas?
they're doing a lot of this topical treatment of.
It's just the topical, not
Yeah.
the other.
Now, the other is a relatively new product, you know, and that's another thing. There are a couple manufacturers, but there's one major one, and so we're a little nervous about that too, that we're sort of relying on one primary. If they go out of business, let's say they get a lot of claims or something, then you get no protection.
This year?
Well, we can't vote on this tonight anyways, right, because it's not on the agenda. Would that be correct? So,
Yeah, yeah.
I think
We have
it's
the same
time to
debate
think
now.
about it.
What's our budget right now, Pat? As far as, we have any more discretionary?
Well, I mean, right now, I mean, again, like I said, we'll know what the budget is when we get the bids in. Right now, based on the 90%, we were like, it was costing Georgetown, I believe, over $1 million. The cost to Georgetown was about $1 million less. That's why there was room in the budget to consider going to the linoleum. But again, like I said, we always do that with some trepidation because there's only one number that's gonna count. That's the number that we come in with the GC bids. And,
This does somewhat affect the bidding, and we would like to get an addendum out on this because, for instance, the warranties. We would now want the warranties to come from the linoleum manufacturer as opposed to the way it's written right now, which says, you know, the warranty is gonna come from the concrete admixture company. So,
Yeah.
Just to give you a very quick take, because I don't disagree with DRA on the situation, it is one of the brain twisters right now. This whole thing started back during this whole green process, green and chips and everything else. And we did Woburn High School, that's a green school. We did Melrose, that was 340,000 feet. We did Melrose Middle School, 220,000 feet. Those are green schools with the same kind of issues, you know, volatility of materials. There wasn't a peep anyplace about moisture in slabs. The flooring went down, the new adhesives went down. I'm not aware of any materials coming up. About 4 years ago, was the first time we heard about it. We started hearing manufacturers wanted, the specs always said they do their own testing. They came in, did some testing. After 6 months, said the moisture in the slab was 95%, which sounded a little strange. The adhesives were only good for 85% or whatever it was. So there was a rather spirited discussion about the whole thing. At that time, the decision was bringing in another testing lab. They came in and said it was about 85%, not 95%. There was an adhesive that was found that met the leads that was 90%. The manufacturer screamed. They said we wouldn't warranty it with that particular product. It ended up getting unscrambled, and there was a substantial dollar attachment to go to a moisture mitigation system. You just heard $3 a square
That's
foot.
50%.
100,000 feet, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So there's the client at that time said, well, you know, for 300 grand, we can replace a lot of tile. There hasn't been any problems before. They made a conscious decision, the owner did, to say, look, we're gonna go with this particular mastic, and we're not gonna spend the $3. There hasn't been any problems that we're aware of on the other green projects that were done by this firm. And again, there were no issues. They took some of the responsibility. And one of the more recent jobs that we have, they specified the Barrier 1 in. The Barrier 1 simply transfers the guarantee from the manufacturer to the concrete additive guy. And again, if that all works, that's wonderful. We have no prior history as to whether that works. We're going to find out because we have it specified on one of the jobs. So again, it's difficult to take issue with obviously an architectural firm who's got the responsibility to design something in, because there isn't really a lot of track record on how this magic material is going to work. It obviously locks the moisture into the concrete slab, irrespective of what the content is, doesn't allow it to vaporize into the system, therefore you won't get any falling out of it. And they, as a matter of fact, we put all these slabs, they actually have their own testing lab come down to make sure you put it in. Right. So every truck that comes in with concrete, they have a testing lab there to make sure the Barrier 1 is in there. Barrier 1 is a trade name, Scotch tape.
It's some kind of
there are other
calcium
manufacturers that
sulfate.
make it.
Yeah, it's amazing. They make you spend 50% more, and then it also takes the onus off of them. That's a beautiful thing for them, right?
So it works out good. The manufacturers don't have the responsibility. Barrier 1 takes the responsibility, and they charge you very healthy amount for it.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, other than a very unusual situation, we've not had any problems with those other projects that were done. They had no mitigation. Now we're putting in this particular product, and again, the architects are taking some risk, assuming that this Barrier 1 is going to work, and they'll obviously stand up to the guarantee.
And even with this 50% increase now in the flooring, you still recommend linoleum to put down as the preferred floor, even with this expense.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And there's not another option.
Well, as Pat says, you can gamble.
No, I mean a flooring material.
That's about adhesives,
Oh.
usually, with all the flooring. And
Increasing the flooring cost
No.
are we increasing it enough to look at an
Changing the flooring
alternative?
material
Won't
would
resolve this.
eliminate this.
Okay.
Yeah, even if you go back to
Concern.
VCT, it's still an issue.
Yes.
The
Okay.
VCT people wouldn't do it. Now, again, one of these days we'll find out that this Barrier 1 is doing the job, and there are no issues. Or there never was an issue to begin with. It was something that obviously was a convenient issue to put on the table, and obviously,
Or in 5 years, everyone's going to be cursing everybody because their linoleum's peeling.
I mean,
well,
a
time
couple
will
of
tell, yeah.
a couple of sort of hidden benefits too of both. If you were to go with the topical treatment and the linoleum, is timing. Now you don't appreciate it, but the contractor appreciates it. With the topical treatment, you don't have to wait for the concrete to dry as much as you would if you were trying to go naked, so to speak, and let it dry on its own. the contractor's gonna say, geez, I just poured that in January, I can't put flooring on it in February. Whereas if you put the top on, you can put the flooring on, pretty quick right after that. With linoleum, not only can you put the flooring down, you can start working on it because you don't have to wax it. You can put linoleum, it doesn't have any finish. With vinyl tile, you get 6 coats of wax.
But
So,
you gotta lay into it first, right?
Yeah.
To get it going.
Yes, you got to buff it a bit to get it, to a shine that.
Carol.
Carol, by the way,
Did you hear me
should-
say, but it shines?
You should.
Linoleum is going right on the concrete floor.
I got a picture.
And there's
It always
there's
does.
no wood between.
There's no pad, no, this is
There's
concrete, this
nothing,
is commercial
No
construction.
liner, nothing.
What if this, I hate to say this, but what if there
Sure.
turned out to be water around the foundation? Would that help prevent that additional moisture from getting to the floor?
No, we want to direct that water away from the
Yeah, I
building.
know we want to, but what if we don't?
We encountered
That's
water,
what I was talking
when we
about.
encountered water when they dug the footing,
Yeah.
we would add.
Something
foundation.
that,
They would
okay.
have-
We would add drains to
Just
carry the water
not to
away.
digress, and obviously not to take exception, but Barry 1 tells you, when you have Barry 1, you don't do any testing. With Barry 1, there's no testing required. Their guarantee says you can put our stuff in there, you don't have to test, they don't recommend you test anything, and you can put your flooring down whenever you want. Because there's no testing involved.
Yeah, they don't want you to know that it was 95% dry anyways. You just wasted $300,000.
Well, they said
Yeah.
if you test, there will be water in there
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it's
'cause
trapping
they're
it.
trapped it, they've held it.
Yeah, because they're
So
making
So it
sure
confuses
escape.
people.
Yes.
But
yes.
it's
So
concrete
it's a
cracks.
complicated situation. The other thing with these
It's a
moisture
salesman,
mitigation
knows how to
things,
spin.
there is some additional time to get it done, because I think they have to go in and do some preparation on the slab and put
Right.
it down.
They
So
have to
there's
scarify it.
another step. With the concrete slab in Barry 1,
Mhm.
you trowel finish the floor, you're ready to put the floor down. I mean, obviously, there's other work that goes around. You put the floor down, and there's a certain amount of drying, because you have to do your drywall petitions and everything else. So you're not gonna put flooring down for, on this job, for 6 months after you put the slabs down. But with this particular product, you would have to go in and you'd have to do some, I guess they do some shot
Scarify.
blasting, scarify it, the topping goes on it. So there's another step that's in there that's a little bit more time consuming.
That's in the $3, that's one
And that's,
reason it
that's
costs
part of
that.
that $3, which is why it's expensive.
So is
It's
that
not
the
cheap.
barrier one, the $3 one?
No.
Or
No.
It's the additive.
Yeah, that's like
Okay.
50 cents, the other one's $3.
Topical is, the brand name is Ardex. There's
So do you recommend the $3 one? And has that been used on other schools that
Yes.
you've designed?
Yes.
And we didn't think of this before?
Oh, no, we
We
thought of
were-
it, and we were sort of going back and forth, as we said, the Barry one is a sort of a new up-and-coming product, and when it's, $1 versus $3, during the pricing, during the design phase, we were going with the $1 option. But,
Even though you recommend the $3.
yeah,
It's-
now,
it just said
'cause-
50 cents, you didn't say $1, you said 50 cents, you did.
It's like right
No,
under
it's a-
$1
Yeah,
per
the
square
fixed
foot.
cost is $1 a foot.
yeah, yeah,
Actually, you're looking at $2 a foot difference.
right, there's $2 difference, thereabouts.
It's like,
So,
Well, what,
Unless you want the
where's
extended
the
warranty or
liability?
not.
Where is the liability for
That's all I
the
got
town?
for
Never
you.
mind the engineer, but what
I always turn down the
happens
extended warranty.
if we get stuck with whatever choice we,
Seriously?
what happens?
well,
You might-
if we go with the topical treatment, is to hold the moisture down, then you're minimizing your risk that there's gonna be a flooring failure, a bubble or the glue dissolving in the future. That's the benefit you get. If you opt not to go with it, and go with the Barrier 1, the risk is that, the flooring manufacturers aren't giving you the warranty on the floor.
How long is the warranty?
It varies, but it's at least a year on most of these.
That usually comes with
Right.
a, the job is
Floor
gonna be
finish.
guaranteed for 1 year, with the exception of some longer guaranteed items, like, some of the mechanical equipment will come with a 5-year
But
warranty or
These
whatever.
problems usually
A vapor barrier, a vapor problem would show up in the first year.
It would.
Because
Because it
it's
doesn't
like-
seem like all that
If
much.
you have concrete in your basements now, if you have, relatively unfit, just go down, put a piece of like saran wrap or
Tape it.
wax paper on the
Oh,
floor,
and you'll-
just tape it. Tomorrow morning,
Like
there'll be
all-
water
Yeah,
underneath
yeah,
that.
that's true.
So that's vapor trying to get through. You your basement may still be dry, but that's vapor trying to get through it. So as soon as you put flooring material on it, you're gonna start trapping things. So within the first year, you'll know if you have an issue or not.
They sell like similar type products at Home Depot that you can put on your basement, like epoxy paints and roll-on things that you can put on your floor to
Right.
prevent that. You've probably seen them, if not
Yeah.
used them.
But you haven't answered me. Now,
That's right.
what happens after a year it's in, and we get the water, and we get issues with it? Where
Then
is
you
the
would,
town protected?
then you, well, you're not protected beyond that.
We're out of it.
You're out of it.
We're stuck
exactly.
with it.
Right. Unless, you know, we can find some, you know, flaw in the way it was actually built, that, you know, something, you know, significant was in the way the concrete was poured or cured or
But if
in that
it's-
particular area, or if there's, you know, you peel back and you discover there was never any glue there in the first place or something, they missed that spot, you know, unless you can find material, you know,
Right.
fact like that. Then once you're beyond the warranty, then you have no, you know, protection in that sense.
So how are we
Alright,
gonna handle
so-
this since we can't vote? Because it wasn't on the agenda. What do you think?
Business?
It's old business.
It's the topic that has to be
Old
on the
business.
agenda,
Right.
not the vote.
Yeah,
Right,
no,
right,
that's
right.
what I'm talking about, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm saying
Right.
vote, but it is the,
Right, right,
It
because we
isn't.
didn't have anything about,
is it,
The
could,
flooring
does this
on it.
fall under update? Is this an update of,
Old business. Is that on the agenda?
I have old business,
Yeah.
it was
I mean, we talked
blank.
about flooring finishes last time, I think, or maybe 2 meetings ago, when we went from vinyl tile to linoleum.
But it still affects it.
Still affects the vinyl
I don't
tile.
know which one to choose, so I don't even know if I can vote. This is a tough one.
And it's the exact same thing with the vinyl tile, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Finding another material doesn't do anything for us.
It's just
Right.
the way it's
Doesn't make the
adhered.
problem go away.
Put it on.
It's just, do we wanna risk it?
Do
Well, it's
it
made
in
a
a new way
transfer
that we don't
guarantee. In
know.
other words, it's either
Right.
Barry One guaranteeing the adhesion,
Right.
or it's the flooring manufacturers who now have what they want installed.
Right. What worries me is
I
what
prefer a
Carl
guarantee
said.
from the flooring
Right,
manufacturer.
because what if they do go under? I had that issue with Windows once.
Yeah, I just,
And-
It's
You know,
We had this
I don't know
issue
how-
with that roof at
I have no idea.
The Barry
yeah.
ones.
I mean, if you're gonna have an issue with the
Yeah.
floor, you
How
want the
long
flooring
it doesn't have a
manufacturer to be
track for you?
responsible.
It's probably been around 10 years, but it was so new and scary at first, not many people used it. They didn't quite, I know our structural engineer said, no, he wouldn't even allow us to think about it for the first few years that it was on the market. Then as it got, you know, a little bit of a track record, we finally got comfortable enough to specify it like last year for the first time.
Carl,
We
would
came
it,
haven't
across
used
it
it?
5 years
would it
ago.
make sense to maybe use that barrier one on the upper floors, but use the adhesive on the bottom floor?
As a cautionary note, again, we have lead weight concrete on the upper floors.
No. No
Regular
rating.
weight. If you have regular weight, you're okay. If you have
Yeah.
lightweight concrete,
But
it's more susceptible on the
I
upper
would,
floors.
I think we still have
We
that
don't have
option. I wouldn't recommend specifying 2 different concrete mixes, but we still have that option of testing the concrete on the upper floors and deleting it, getting a credit, and not having to spend the money up there, if it turns out to be.
And that's when we're
okay.
in,
Construction.
thank you.
Yes, during construction, we'd have enough
So we
time.
have that option during.
Yes, we would test it,
Well, I think
the
I would
moisture.
lean for the tried and true.
Right.
Well, I know that's
don't-
the thing,
Don't
right.
wanna risk it, you know, we've done that in the past and we got burned.
Mhm.
What's the difference in price?
About $200,000 from the estimate,
I know.
you know, from the estimate we had
50% more for the
previously.
And they need an answer because they have to finish this up for MSBA and get it in.
Well, it's for the
For the
contractor.
bidding.
It's for the
For the
bidding
bidding.
purpose.
For the
Especially
bidding.
the file bids are coming in on the
Yeah.
5th, and that does affect the file submit on the flooring guys. They don't know whether he's providing a warranty, guarantee or not, how he's gonna handle it, you know.
It's under the DRA update.
Yeah. We're gonna put you under the update because I think this is important enough that we do need to make a decision tonight because it's going to affect, I mean, it's quite a domino effect.
It just kills me. It's 60% more.
Yeah.
And you know there's, God knows, 60% profit in it, you know?
It's like insurance, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
You pay for it and you hope you never use it.
You know what, if we were over budget, I could worry more, but, you know,
How much are we under budget right now?
Cost of Georgetown was over $1 million less than we were.
You know there's gonna be things that come up that are just
Well,
like-
yeah, we just increased
Well,
that to
yes.
10 feet, now we're doing this, yeah.
So they're recommending.
Yeah, I know. All right. Well, then, I'll entertain a motion to approve the, what is the product called?
Topical moisture mitigation on the
To
concrete slabs.
approve changing to the topical moisture mitigation
Mitigation on the concrete slabs.
on the concrete slabs.
And this is done after the cement's poured.
Yeah.
And this is
Up to
just, this
them.
is under all the
It has to
Has to cure for
generally a
what?
month,
That's
a
28
month,
days.
and then Pat says they go through and
That's
rough
not
it
the
out.
sewer,
everything.
right?
But that's-
It doesn't have to be done in all cases, like under the wood floor, you don't have to do it, because it's got its own vapor barrier, and it's a floating floor, so,
Yeah,
again, they
that's
can
fair.
go back and look at it. We got mud job, ceramic tile, you don't need it, so you
Yeah.
might be able to squeeze the square foot.
And hardwood.
Do I hear, would anyone like to so move my motion?
What did you just do for the
Thank you.
second
Would anyone care
one?
to second it?
We going for the expensive one?
Yeah, well, that's what this motion is,
But the
to
motion is
approve.
to go
Just wanted
forward
to
with.
approve
with
this.
what
Approve the
DRA.
moisture mitigation,
This is to
delete- and
approve-
delete the additive in the concrete.
Correct, and delete the
Delete
additive.
the additive.
Right, okay. Would anyone care to second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion? Any other questions about this? All right, so everyone's clear. It's an increase of about $3 a square foot to and
Net
change.
difference.
No, the difference is two. It's $3 square foot. The other
The difference
process
is
is
two.
one. This is three.
Right, so it's
You don't.
$2.
We're not sure the other $1 works because it's new. The $3 kind of we know it works.
Well, the big thing is the warranty.
The floor manufacturer will warranty the floor
Their own
for $3.
product.
And they won't do it for the $1
They will
one.
not do it for the $1.
Depending on the barrier one, if you go that.
Right.
But remember, for the $1, if you had to replace a good section of the floor, you'd have the money to do it. All the money you save.
Well, that depends on how much of the floor you'd have to
Depends on how much
fix.
the floor.
You
The
know,
school,
right.
the school won't have that money. They'll have to come up with that
Right.
money.
So
At that
Lisa
time.
here,
That's a good point.
yeah.
Here and now.
Yeah, you're getting
Right.
reimbursed now.
Yeah, we're
You
getting,
would
right.
think that the manufacturer would give us a break on the linoleum if we're going for this.
I know.
How about a little municipal?
Right, $4 square foot instead of
Yeah, go back and
$5.
renegotiate on the linoleum.
Meeting over there with
This is your own house.
Back
might-
and negotiate on that. I
Maybe
would
you
do
could
that.
definitely bring that
What
up
you
to
thinking,
them.
Tilly?
Is
There
this
you go.
something we're looking at?
Back in
Middle
here,
high
then,
school?
will you please?
Yes.
That's all gonna come on the laundry.
But
You never know,
it-
we're all
it-
gonna compete for this.
It may subtly affect
I
their
mean, we're
bid.
into discussion.
If they see that there is topical mitigation, it may affect their bid.
Linoleum.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
Is this
If
something,
they-
Carl, we're looking at the middle high school too? For the buckled,
Yes.
That would be,
Yes.
yeah,
Where we
especially for that.
repair
location.
that flooring on the lower level, yes, we'd have the same discussion with you. Even though we're gonna do whatever we can to pick up the moisture outside the building, we'd still recommend
Especially there.
you think about this for that ground
Because
floor
over there, there's
slab.
really no option. You're not gonna put
Yeah.
barrier one in existing concrete. You wanna
Right.
keep that moisture out. You
So
probably
any
do
initial
it there.
costing was done with the barrier one though, that you guys did for us, for the middle
Yes,
school?
initial costing was
Initial.
No,
one
I'm
time.
talking about the middle school.
Oh, the middle high school,
Oh,
I'm not sure.
That's wrapped up
It
in that
was-
number. We,
So
On
you-
middle school,
you-
no,
you-
there's no barrier.
There was
one,
such
because you're not-
ballpark
so it's
numbers.
not
Oh,
existing
no.
slabs.
But
yeah, the
In the bottom
topical
floor.
was.
that's a good
included
question.
in
So
that
you have
number.
$1 in the budget right now for the barrier one, is what you said. So now we're really talking about adding another $2 a square foot.
Right.
Yes.
So one's already in the budget, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
All right, so, any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I think the discount that the flooring company gives is you do 2 floors, you get 1 free.
I see the advertising TV all the time.
Yeah, really.
All
Two
right.
rooms, third
Carl,
one free.
anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think we're all set. Yes, anyone who wants to join us on the walk around tomorrow morning at 10 at Pembroke?
What's the
welcome.
date for Boston?
The 28th.
28.
August 28th?
Yeah.
And everyone on the committee is certainly welcome to show up at MSBA and attend.
Well, but we just need to know beforehand, because they like to have a list.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
We-
they like
we need to
to
know
greet
who's
you by
going.
name.
We
No,
can't
they like
just-
to greet you by
And I'll
name.
tell you, the
Yeah.
facilities, they're not looking for a lot, they're looking for an owner's representative, the
Right,
OPM,
right,
the
right,
architect. come in with a couple, it's not a problem.
They're especially,
Not looking to do it.
he showed up with like Bruce Carr's office, so they wanna know if any
Right.
Any
state reps are
reps
gonna be
are-
there,
yes.
that kind of thing. You wanna make sure that they're aware of who's there.
All right, so we have not determined where the next two meetings are gonna be. We have determined that September 10th and September 24th are the meeting dates. But your agenda will tell you location, we just haven't, booked it on the calendar yet to the exact location. May I, Would
Make a
anyone-
motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
The 10th and the 24th.